All right, everybody. Uh, I have absolutely no excuse here. I mean, I do. I have no idea what I'm doing. So, I am Dr. Josh Digital Hammurabi, and I was actually getting ready to kind of call it a night. Skylar and I did a stream, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes ago, or I guess it was a little longer than that. And, uh, hey, Nick J. And I still can't figure out why this thing isn't showing up. But anyway, so I looked at my whatchamacallit. Sorry, it's been a long day. I looked at my channel is what I'm thinking of, the word that I'm thinking of here. And noticed that I had inadvertently created, I don't know how this thing works, honestly. I guess this is what I'm trying to say. So I'm using Streamlabs, which is, it is lamentable, TLJ, sorry. So I'm using Streamlabs, which is not, I guess, OBS. It's not strictly the same. I've told you more than I understand. But anyway, like even now, I adjusted this. Okay, anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is I saw that I had set up a stream, even though I was streaming to Skylar's channel. It somehow created a show on our channel because I was logged in on Digital Hammurabi, even though the stream key was different. It was going to... Anyway, so it looked like we were supposed to go on at 8:30, and of course people were in the side chat, and I'm really sorry. So I thought, guys, I've come on live 3 times in the past 2 days. 2 times it was a mistake, and then third I just didn't even come on because I didn't know I'd done it. So I promise I'm going to figure this thing out. I don't know how. I still can't figure out why it's not connecting. Like I don't see the side chat here on Streamlabs. I don't know what I'm doing. Megan's not here. So at any rate, I thought I've screwed this up so many times that instead of... Turn the volume down on the mic a little bit. It seems like it's pinging a little. Instead of just turning it off, I'm going to go ahead and do a book club because I have screwed this up too many times. And if people are disappointed and want me to go on at 3 o'clock tomorrow, I'll do a different one tomorrow at 3 o'clock. But I just felt like I've jerked everybody around too much. So we are going to do the Book of Lamentations tonight. So hopefully the audio is good and the screen's coming through okay. By the way, I don't know if anybody recognizes the background there, but this is the painting that Christina Blackfeather did. That's unbelievably amazing. Now that I've put it up there, I hope it's okay that I put it up here. I'm pretty sure it is. Christina, if you're watching and you don't want it up there, just tell me. I'll take it down. But I'm just so excited about it. It's incredible. Anyway, she did such a fantastic job. I mean, I'm sure it's okay. I'm not entirely sure that it's okay, but I'm pretty sure it's okay. Anyhow. So I see 3 people in the chat. I can't tell how many people are watching because I can't figure out how to make Streamlabs connect. So if you guys have questions while I'm doing this, or the audio's no good, or the video's not working, or whatever, just let me know. But let's get into our book club. So if you don't know, Megan is in the UK, which is why I've been screwing all this stuff up here. You can't leave me alone. You just can't leave me alone. So we in our book club have... Boy, we've gone through a lot of different texts, mostly Sumerian and Akkadian texts. Actually, thus far, all the Sumerian and Akkadian texts. But, oh, awesome. 15 watching. Thanks, guys. Hey, what's up, Robbie? So, in our book clubs, we read Sumerian and Akkadian texts, and the point is that so many people know about, texts from Greece, ancient Greece, or from, Rome, or even, obviously from the biblical text. But oftentimes people don't know a lot about Sumerian and Akkadian texts, and so we, read through all kinds of different literary texts, myths, those sorts of things, the first flood stories and all those, texts that we see from ancient Mesopotamia. We read in our last two book clubs, we've been focusing on city laments. And just as a brief recap, Sumerian city laments are a genre of text that essentially are focused in on their liturgical style text. They're used in situations where the priests believed that the gods might get upset and either leave the city or destroy the city or just bring about a bad situation in the city. And so they would recite these very formulaic liturgical texts, these liturgies that describe the destruction that would take place if the god were to leave or were to turn his back on the city. And this lament developed into what's called a city lament. And the city lament, we talked about it a little bit, becomes a little more focused. These made their way into scribal education, so they became a little more standardized in that sense, in one sense anyway. And so we read through several of them, and basically what they're doing is they're describing the destruction of a city. So the city of Uruk, the city of Ur. There's a very popular one called Lament of the Destruction of Sumer and Ur, where the god Nana is told by Enlil, abandon your city because the gods have decreed that, it's going to be destroyed and there's nothing you can do about it. So abandon your city. But the whole point is that these texts describe the ancient cities being destroyed and the gods being responsible for doing it. And so I thought it would be appropriate to, as sort of to round out this series, to go to the Bible, because the Bible has a city lament. And there are other sort of city lament-like texts. You see some in Ezekiel, you see, it doesn't matter. But one of the places that you see it is the Book of Lamentations. So there aren't a lot of people that have read the Book of Lamentations, unless, I guess that's not true, though. Lots of people have, but many people have not. It's not the most popular book to read. It seems kind of repetitive. There's not... Yeah, at any rate. We're going to read through it, and you're going to see, if you've been with us for the other book clubs where we read the Sumerian City Laments, when we read through the Book of Lamentations, you're going to say, man, I see a lot of general parallel ideas. Destruction of the city, the gods turning their backs, those sorts of things. By way of introduction, I won't go into a lot of detail on this because it's not really the point, but the Book of Lamentations, there's a lot of debate about who wrote it. It's, the more common idea is that Jeremiah wrote it, and so they, it seems like it comes right after the fall of Judah, so, right after 586, roughly, but that's sort of the general background. Excuse me. It's, it's describing the destruction of the destruction that came following the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So what we're going to do is read it, not so much to think about it as Daniel Nicholas says, I like Lamentations, but it's no Ecclesiastes. This is true. But we're going to read it not so much to think about it from a historical aspect or perspective, like where does it fit historically. That's not really the point here. What I want us to think about as we read this is, do we see sort of a common ancient Near Eastern motif that's being picked up on here in the City Lament when we read through it and we think about it from the aspect of Sumerian literature. So I have the text up on my screen so I don't have to look down the whole time, and I am going to scoot this over so that I can see the side chat. So, again, any questions or comments that you guys have, I will try to keep an eye on it. You say lament, I think Jim Morrison. Come on, baby, light my fire. No, that's probably not the right thing to reference there. Yeah, I wasn't allowed to listen to Jim Morrison. I wasn't allowed to listen to The Doors when I was younger. Yeah. At any rate, let's go ahead and read it. So I'm going to read it in the NIV. So if you want to follow along, and again, you can just go to, I'm on BibleGateway.com. You can go there if you like. Of course, anybody, if you have an NIV Bible or whatever, you can read along. But here we go. Lamentations, chapter 1. How deserted lies the city, once so full of people. How like a widow is she, who once was great among the nations. She who was queen among the provinces has now become a slave. Bitterly she weeps at night. Tears are on her cheeks. Among all her lovers there is no one to comfort her. All her friends have betrayed her. They have become her enemies. After affliction and harsh labor, Judah has gone into exile. She dwells among the nations. She finds no resting place. All who pursue her have overtaken her in the midst of her distress. The roads to Zion mourn, for no one comes to her appointed festivals. All her gateways are desolate. Her priests groan. Her young women grieve, and she is in bitter anguish. Her foes have become her masters. Her enemies are at ease. The Lord has brought her grief because of her many sins. Her children have gone into exile, captive before the foe. All the splendor has departed from daughter Zion. Her princes are like deer that find no pasture. In weakness they have fled before the pursuer. In the days of her affliction and wandering, Jerusalem remembers all the treasures that were hers in the days of old. When her people fall into enemy hands, there was no one to help her. Her enemies looked at her and laughed at her destruction. Jerusalem has sinned greatly, and so has become unclean. All who honored her despised her, for they have seen her naked. She herself groans and turns away. Her filthiness clung to her skirts. She did not consider her future. Her fall was astounding. There was none to comfort her. Look, Lord, on my affliction, for the enemy has triumphed. The enemy laid hands on all her treasures. She saw pagan nations enter her sanctuary, those you had forbidden to enter your assembly. All her people groan as they search for bread. They barter their treasures for food. They keep themselves alive. Look, Lord, and consider, for I am despised. Is it nothing to you, all you who pass by? Look around and see. Is any suffering like my suffering that was inflicted on me, that the Lord brought on me in the day of his fierce anger? From on high he sent fire, sent it down into my bones. He spread a net for my feet and turned me back. He made me desolate, faint all the day long. My sins have been bound into a yoke. By his hands they were woven together. They have been hung on my neck, and the Lord has sapped my strength. He has given me into the hands of those I cannot withstand. The Lord has rejected all the warriors in my midst. He has summoned an army against me to crush my young men. In his winepress the Lord has trampled virgin daughter Judah. This is why I weep, and my eyes overflow with tears. No one is near to comfort me, no one to restore my spirit. My children are destitute, because the enemy has prevailed. Zion stretches out her hands, but there is no one to comfort her. The Lord has decreed for Jacob that his neighbors become his foes. Jerusalem has become an unclean thing among them. The Lord is righteous, yet I rebelled against his command. Listen, all you peoples, look on my suffering. My young men and young women have gone into exile. I called to my allies, but they betrayed me. My priests and my elders perished in the city, while they searched for food to keep themselves alive. See, Lord, how distressed I am. I am in torment within. and my heart is in my heart I am disturbed, for I have been most rebellious. Outside the sword bereaves, inside there is only death. People have heard my groaning, but there is none to comfort me. All my enemies have heard of my distress. They rejoice at what you have done. May you bring the day you have announced, so they may become like me. Let all their wickedness come before you. Deal with them as you have dealt with me, because of all my sins. My groans are many, and my heart is faint. So a couple of things to consider here before we move on to chapter 2. You see the theme of destruction and desolation and God turning his back. And one of the things that is, I think, distinct as I read through this again, and I read through it a couple of days ago just to sort of prep for this, and that is that one of the things that's, I think, that stands out is the fact that the writer, let's say it's Jeremiah just for ease, that Jeremiah is saying, we have sinned, we have brought this about. And this is you see this if you read through the book of Daniel, particularly Daniel chapter 9. You see Jeremiah, the theme of Jeremiah. You see Leviticus 26. These themes sort of being picked up. Oh, hey, alias fake name, how are you? Yeah, I was going to do this tomorrow. I explained it a little earlier. I screwed up so many times today. I didn't mean to make this stream because this was supposed to be, hey, I can do 5. This was supposed to be tomorrow at 3. But then when I made the stream for Skylar's channel, because I don't know how Streamlabs works, it created one also for Digital Hammurabi. It's I don't understand how it works. I got to figure this out. Anyway, so sorry. So we're reading through Ecclesiastes. I just read through Ecclesiastes chapter 1, but you see this theme that the writer is saying it's our fault that the city has been destroyed. We have sinned. We have brought about our destruction. And you see this in Daniel chapter 9. Daniel reads back through the Jeremiah ostensibly. At least that's what the writer wants us to think. And he sees the 70 years of desolation that Jeremiah prophesied in, I think it's Jeremiah 25, and says, oh my gosh, this is, we're here because of our sin, because of what we have done. And this is something that stands out to me anyway, because you don't necessarily have this notion in the Mesopotamian text and the Sumerian Laments. It's just that the gods are more capricious in Mesopotamia. And so Enkidu 5 says, wait till Megan gets back. She'll set everything straight. No question. I am actually not looking forward to her waking up because I'm afraid I'm going to be in trouble. I'm screwing up her channel when she goes. Shady Blady, I love Josh and Megan, but is he going to read the whole book? I was going to. Should I not read the whole thing? It's just what we do in the book clubs. If you guys don't want me to read the whole thing, I totally don't have to. Just thought maybe it would be just to kind of in keeping with the other stuff that we've done. It's only 5 chapters, yeah, if am I remembering that correctly. Hopefully it won't take too long. I'll tell you what, I'll keep reading, and then you guys, you let me know if you just kind of want me to skip around a little bit and hit some of the highlights. Yeah. Okay. So, back to it. Lamentations chapter 2. How the Lord has covered daughter Zion. Accusette says, I've got at least 2 hours. Read the whole thing. Roger that. You guys let me know. And alias, I will try not to break Megan's new computer. It really is awesome. She did a fantastic job. Oh, Grandma Mo says, read the whole thing. Thank you. All right. We'll do it. Let's do it. How the Lord has covered daughter Zion with a cloud of his anger. He has hurled down the splendor of Israel from heaven to earth. He has not remembered his footstool in the day of his anger. Without pity, the Lord has swallowed up all the dwellings of Jacob. In his wrath, he has torn down the strongholds of daughter Judah. He has brought her kingdom and its princes down to the ground in dishonor. So you can see again, even though they're accepting the fact that they've brought this about, it's God is bringing this about. And I think it's really important to recognize that, because just like we would think today from a Christian mindset, you see people from a Christian mindset say all these terrible things have happened, but it's God's will. God has done these things. And so the same is true. And it answers the question. It answers the question of, why have we gone into captivity? Why have these terrible things happened? Well, it's because God has allowed these things to happen. Our God is mighty. Our God is powerful. None of these things happen outside of his will. And again, this is a theme that you hear today, and you heard it back in Mesopotamia as well. Again, I think the difference is that here they're saying that they have sinned to bring it about. So, in fierce anger, he has cut off every horn of Israel. He has withdrawn his right hand at the approach of the enemy. He has burned in Jacob like a flaming fire that consumes everything around it. Like an enemy, he has strung his bow. His right hand is steady. Like a foe, he has slain all who are pleasing to the eye. He has poured out his wrath like fire on the tent of daughter Zion. The Lord is like an enemy. He has swallowed up Israel. He has swallowed up all her palaces and destroyed her strongholds. He has multiplied mourning and lamentation for daughter Judah. He has laid waste his dwelling like a garden. He has destroyed his place of meeting. The Lord has made Zion forget her appointed festivals and her Sabbaths. In his fierce anger he has spurned both king and priest. The Lord has rejected his altar and abandoned his sanctuary. He has given the walls of her palaces into the hands of the enemy. They have raised a shout in the house of the Lord, as on the day of an appointed festival. The Lord determined to tear down the wall around daughter Zion. He stretched out a measuring line and did not withhold his hand from destroying. He made ramparts and walls lament. Together they wasted away. Her gates have sunk into the ground. Her gates have sunk into the ground. Their bars have been broken and destroyed. Her king and her princes are exiled among the nations. The law is no more, and her prophets no longer find visions from the Lord. The elders of daughter Zion sit on the ground in silence. They have sprinkled dust on their heads and put on sackcloth. The young women of Jerusalem have bowed their heads to the ground. My eyes fail from weeping. I am in torment within. My heart is poured out on the ground because my people are destroyed, because children and infants faint in the streets of the city. They say to their mothers, "Where is bread and wine?" Children and infants are saying, "Where is bread and wine?" Obviously, it's not strictly that. Anyway, okay. It's just funny. As they faint like the wounded. I shouldn't be laughing at this. This isn't funny. They say to their mothers, "Where is bread and wine?" As they faint like the wounded in the streets of the city, as their lives ebb away in their mother's arms. What can I say to you? With what can I compare you, daughter Jerusalem? To what can I liken you, that I may comfort you, virgin daughter Zion? Your wound is as deep as the sea. Who can heal you? The visions of your prophets were false and worthless. They did not expose your sin to ward off your captivity. The prophecies they gave you were false and misleading. All who pass your way, and this is something that you see, by the way, prophets, whenever we think of prophets, we think of, in the biblical text, prophets that prophesy on behalf of the Lord. I guess we don't always think of that, but, sorry, I read something in the side chat, but, one of the things that we don't always think about is that there were plenty of false prophets, again, according to the text, that were prophesying things that were not in, the Lord's name. And so calling attention to these things, actually, there were lots of them. And so, if this is Jeremiah, he's calling attention to that. All who pass by you clap their hands at you. They scoff and shake their heads at daughter Jerusalem. Is this the city that was called the perfection of beauty, the joy of the whole earth? All your enemies open their mouths wide against you. They scoff and gnash their teeth and say, "We have swallowed her up. This is the day we have waited for. We have lived to see it." You see a lot of this kind of language, by the way. If you read through Ezekiel, you read through the passage about Tyre, this sort of language is just a motif People passing by, shaking their heads. A call from Slovenia. That makes sense. It's the final countdown. That's my it's my ringtone. It's one of my ringtones. Awesome song. Anyway. Right, so people passing by, gnashing their teeth at them, saying we've waited for this. We've called for their destruction. If you remember, Tyre said that about Jerusalem when it was destroyed. So at any rate, Math Magic Pagan. It's like story time around the campfire. I have the lights off and it's Josh telling a spooky story. Oh gosh. And he had a claw. So, verse 17. The Lord has done what he planned. He has fulfilled his word, which he decreed long ago. He has overthrown you without pity. He has let the enemy gloat over you. He has exalted the horn of your foes. If you want to, and I promise I won't keep doing this. Yes, and Nick J points out here the acrostic. So this is one of the places. Psalm 119 is another one where you have acrostics that are set up. This is part of the poetry here. Maybe we'll do some analysis of this at a later date. But thank you, Nick, for pointing that out. It's really cool. But if you go back and read chapters like Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26 in particular, you see that the way that the text is laid out, the way that the Tanakh is laid out in the biblical text, is very strategic, the way that they put it together, in the sense that Leviticus 26 lays out essentially two paths that Israel could go down. One is the path of obeying God and following his commands and, doing the festivals and all these things. And that would lead to blessings. The other is disobedience, and it leads to curses. And you see that the text essentially portrays that, good grief, that these things, these curses that are going to take place are laid out in such a way that you can actually, in a sense, track them throughout the history of the biblical text, throughout Samuel, throughout Kings, and to the point that when Daniel looks back, and the writer here of Lamentations looks back and sees, oh gosh, it said in the text that all these things would happen to us. That's what's being, I think at least alluded to here. The Lord has done what he planned. He has fulfilled his word, which he decreed long ago. If you read back through Leviticus 26, you'll see what I'm talking about. So, the hearts of the people, verse 18, cry out to the Lord. The walls of daughter Zion, let your tears flow like a river day and night. Give yourself no relief, your eyes no rest. Arise, cry out in the night as the watches of the night begin. Pour out your heart like water in the presence of the Lord. Lift up your hands to him for the lives of your children who faint from hunger at every street corner. Look, Lord, and consider, whom have you treated like this? Should women eat their offspring, the children they have cared for? Should priest and prophet be killed in the sanctuary of the Lord? So interesting parallels there, right? Mothers eating children, priests being killed in the place of their care and protection in the sanctuary. Young and old lie together in the dust of the streets. My young men and young women have fallen by the sword. You have slain them in the day of your anger. You have slaughtered them without pity. As you summon to a feast day, so you summon against me terrors on every side. In the day of the Lord's anger, no one escaped or survived. Those I cared for and reared, my enemy has destroyed. Chapter 3. I am the man who has seen affliction. I am the man of constant sorrows. Just kidding. Sorry. I could sing that. I used to sing that to Paige all the time. I won't sing it because I want people to stay tuned in. All right. I am the man who has seen affliction by the rod of the Lord's wrath. The metaphorical rod. He has driven me away and made me walk in darkness rather than light. Indeed, he has turned his hand against me again and again all day long. He has made my skin and my flesh grow old, and has broken my bones. He has besieged me and surrounded me with bitterness and hardship. He has made me dwell in darkness, like those long dead. He has walled me in so I cannot escape. He has weighed me down with chains. Even when I call out a cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. He has barred my way with blocks of stone. He has made my paths crooked. Like a bear lying in wait, like a lion in hiding, he dragged me from the path and mangled me and left me without hope. Without help. Excuse me. He drew his bow and made me the target of his arrows. He pierced my heart with arrows from his quiver. I became the laughingstock of all my people. They mock me in song all day long. He has filled me with bitter herbs and given me gall to drink. He has broken my teeth with gravel. He has trampled me in the dust. I have been deprived of peace. I have forgotten what prosperity is. So I say, my splendor is gone, and all that I had hoped from the Lord. I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed. And it's so interesting. Think of this when you read this. If you've read through the Psalms, as I'm sure many of you have, you almost always see this pattern of lament, 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 lament. But I hope in the Lord. My trust is in Him. And it's no different here. Excuse me. Good grief. I am so sorry, everybody. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. Ki la'olam chasto, right? Psalm 119. Pretty sure that repetition is in Psalm 119. Gosh, hope I'm not wrong about that. But that for His mercy endureth forever. Ki la'olam chasto. So I don't know that that's actually what the Hebrew is here, obviously, but I suspect chesed is the word for faithfulness here. That's verse 23 of chapter 3. I say to myself, I'm going to stop rambling on there. The Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for Him. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in Him, to the one who seeks Him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. It is good for a man to bear the yoke while he is young. Let him sit alone in silence, for the Lord has laid it on him. Let him bury his face in the dust. There may yet be hope. Let him offer his cheek to the one who would strike him, and let him be filled with disgrace. For no one is cast off by the Lord forever. Though he brings grief, he will show compassion. So great is his unfailing love. For he does not willingly bring affliction or grief to anyone. And you can see, how these things, there's sort of this going through this mental process of why is there evil? Why are there bad things happening? God has His good reasons, and He won't do it forever. This is a theme that you'll see. Right? And this is sort of the basis, honestly, of Hebrews chapter 11. Not to go way off topic here, but when you read through Hebrews 11 and the big passage that everybody debates about, what is faith and what is faith, hope without evidence. But I don't know that that's really the thing we should necessarily focus on, at least in this broader context. It's this idea that the faithful are those that adhere to the creeds, the things that keep them going, the ideas of what does it mean to have fidelity in the face of such, what would we say, overwhelming odds. And so, this is sort of the point, and you see this in books like Daniel. You see this in other apocalyptic literature, this idea that things are bad, things are tough, and how do we make sense of it, and how do we endure? How do we keep going in the midst, in spite of all of these horrific things? And so you see this as, I think, a core aspect of the Book of Lamentations, because, again, it's dealing with this aspect of why is there evil? Why are these bad things happening? God has His just reasons for doing so, is the argument, and that it won't last forever. Those who those who remain, those who hold fast, those who continue to have faith to the faith. They are the ones that will, those that endure will overcome. So, to crush underfoot all prisoners in the land, to deny people their rights before the Most High, to deprive them justice. Would not the Lord see such things? Who can speak and have it happen if the Lord has not decreed it? Is it not from the mouth of the Most High that both calamities and good things come? Why should the living complain when punished for their sins? In other words, God is all justice. Psalm 136. Thank you. Yep. Yeah, I often mix up the Psalms. It's how I roll. And I can never remember the one that is, maybe it's 139, where it talks about day and night my tears have been my food. I always mess it up. Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. Let us lift up our hearts and our hands to God in heaven, and say, we have sinned and rebelled, and you have not forgiven. You have covered yourself with anger and pursued us. You have slain without pity. You have covered yourself with a cloud, so that no prayer can get through. You have made us scum and refuse among the nations. All our enemies have opened their mouths wide against us. We have suffered terror and pitfalls, ruin and destruction. Streams of tears flow from my eyes because my people are destroyed. Again, it's our fault, not God's. That's the message here. My eyes will flow unceasingly without relief until the Lord looks down from heaven and sees. What I see brings grief to my soul because of all the women of my city. Those who were my enemies without cause hunted me like a bird. They tried to end my life in a pit and threw stones at me. The waters closed over my head, and I thought I was about to perish. I called on your name, Lord, from the depths of the pit. You heard my plea. Do not close your ears to my cry for relief. You came near when I called you, and you said, do not fear. You, Lord, took up my case. You redeemed my life. I'm reminded of Jonah here, the poetry in Jonah. Was it Jonah 3? And being down at the base of the mountains, the roots of the mountains, and crying out. Yeah, Nick J. He notes there. Also note how the author of Lamentations declares people are in the wrong, never God. Yep. Accusette, could you make a video about that theme, loyalty and fidelity in the relationship, especially in a religious context, in the Hebrew, Sumerian, and Akkadian context? Yeah, definitely. And this is one of the things that you see. Deuteronomy is compared to this, to these essentially treaties, Suzerain treaties. And so you see this idea of loyalty to the covenant, loyalty to what's been agreed upon. And it's interesting because when you see words like love and hate in the biblical text, oftentimes these are, because I don't want to say strictly a legal context, but they're not so much so an emotional context, at least in the way that we would think about them. Yet I digress here. Sorry. Oh, Richard Mattson. Hey, Richard. Rumors of your kindness abound. Like and subscribe, everyone. So Richard and I are going to have a discussion at some point, which is going to be great. If you guys haven't seen Richard have conversations, he's been on The Raging Atheist. He's obviously been on the Skylar Fiction Show. He had a great debate with Nephilim Free. Go to Nephilim Free's channel to see that. It's fantastic. But yeah, now I'm looking forward to it. Richard, be nice. Nick J, is this pit compatible with I don't know. I suspect this is more of a literal pit, although there could be wordplay. I'd have to look. I mean, it may be a literal pit. I mean, I'm looking at it here. It seems like at least the situation that's being described here is, even if it's in a metaphorical sense, it does look like it's all keeping with a literal scene. But yeah, I'd have to think about it. So verse 61. Lord, you have heard their insults. We're in, if you're just joining us, Lamentations, Book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verse 61. Lord, you have heard their insults, all their plots against me, what my enemies whisper and mutter against me all day long. Look at them, sitting or standing. They mock me in their songs. Pay them back what they deserve, Lord, for what their hands have done. Put a veil over their hearts, and may your curse be on them. Pursue them in anger and destroy them from under the heavens of the Lord. Chapter 4. How the gold has lost its luster. The fine gold becomes dull. The sacred gems are scattered at every street corner. How the precious children of Zion, once worth their weight in gold, are now considered as pots of clay. And if you think about it, I didn't realize this before I started taking archaeological classes, but when you go to the Middle East, go on these tells, the mounds that cities are built on, even if it's not necessarily on a mound, you see potsherds everywhere. I mean, I remember when I was in Syria excavating in 2009, it might have been 2010. One of the things that we did every day as we dug down is we had to collect all the potsherds, and there are just thousands and thousands and thousands of them. It's really surprising. So, I mean, it shouldn't be surprising, right? But it was surprising to me. So here, taking something that worth their weight in gold, now they're considered as pots of clay. I mean, clay pots were so prevalent, ubiquitous. You couldn't go and nudge dirt around with your foot without stumbling upon a potsherd. So, even jackals, verse 3, offer their breasts to nurse their young, but my people have become heartless like ostriches in the desert. Because of thirst, the infant's tongue sticks to the roof of its mouth. I suspect that's it's probably anyway, it doesn't matter. The children beg for bread, but no one gives it to them. Those who once ate delicacies are destitute in the streets. Those brought up in royal purple now lie on ash heaps. The punishment of my people is greater than that of Sodom, which was overthrown in a moment without a hand turned to help her. Sherds. Yeah. Although there could be pot shirts, that's possible. Sorry, I'm sure it was just a joke. Their princes were brighter than snow and whiter than milk, their bodies more ruddy than rubies, their appearance like lapis lazuli. But now they are blacker than soot. They are not recognized in the streets. Their skin has shriveled on their bones. It has become as dry as a stick. Those killed by the sword are better off than those who die of famine. Racked with hunger, they waste away for lack of food from the field. With their own hands, compassionate women have cooked their own children, who became their food when my people were destroyed. So, I'm sure most of you know this, but just to sort of put that into context, when you have most of the food is grown out in the fields in the hinterland, right around the cities. And so when you want to take a city, when you want to destroy it, one of the things that you do is you lay siege to it, surround it, or cut it off from its hinterland. When you do that, it makes it very, very difficult to try to get to get food into the city. So one of the reasons that Tyre, sorry, we don't have to go into all that, but nonetheless, so one of the things that you read about in the biblical texts, and this is, not something that's, I guess, terribly difficult to understand, is that when people don't have food coming in, they got to find it somewhere. So, enough said. So, the Lord has given full vent to his wrath. He has poured out his fierce anger. He kindled a fire in Zion that consumed her foundations. The kings of the earth did not believe, nor did any of the peoples of the world, that enemies and foes could enter the gates of Jerusalem. But it happened because of the sins of her prophets and the iniquities of her priests, who shed within her the blood of the righteous. Now they grope through the streets as if they were blind. They are so defiled with blood that no one dares to touch their garments. Go away, you are unclean, people cry to them. Away, away, don't touch us. When they flee and wander about, people among the nations say, they can stay here no longer. The Lord himself has scattered them. He no longer watches over them. The priests are shown no honor, the elders no favor. Moreover, our eyes failed, looking in vain for help. From our towers we watched for a nation that could not save us. When I read that, I picture Lord of the Rings, and lighting that tower, for Rohan to come and help Gondor. Or wait, I guess it's the other way around. Is it Gondor that's supposed to come and help? Yeah, I think it's Gondor is supposed to, right, it's Rohan is supposed to come in. Sorry. Anyway. Right. But there, you light that flame so that you can see it as, help is coming. Of course, they're looking out from the towers for help coming. Okay. People stalked us at every step, verse 18, so we could not walk in our own streets. Our end was near, our days were numbered, for our end has come. Our pursuers were swifter than eagles in the sky. They chased us over the mountains and lay in wait for us in the desert. The Lord's anointed, our very life breath, was caught in their traps. We thought that under his shadow we would live among the nations. Rejoice and be glad, daughter Edom, you who live in the land of Uz. But to you also the cup will be passed, and you will be drunk and stripped naked. Your punishment will end, daughter Zion. He will not prolong your exile, but he will punish your sin, daughter Edom, and expose your wickedness. Chapter 5. Just make sure there aren't any. Okay. Remember, Lord, what has happened to us. Look and see our disgrace. Our inheritance has been turned over to strangers, our homes to foreigners. We have become fatherless. Our mothers are widows. We must buy the water we drink. Our wood can be had only at a price. Those who pursue us are at our heels. We are weary and find no rest. We submitted to Egypt and Assyria to get enough bread. And if you think about that in the context of like Kings, Isaiah 39, you see the idea of those in the land, particularly like in Jerusalem, sending out to get assistance from Egypt to Assyria. Jeremiah says, "Don't trust in Egypt." God, I hope I'm not mixing up prophets. At any rate, Isaiah. Anyway, sorry. Good grief. I gotta get some sleep. Okay, at any rate, they're not supposed to be relying on Egypt to the south, Assyria, off to the northeast. They're supposed to be relying on the Lord. This is what Hezekiah does in in Isaiah 39, and he blessed for it. Right. Okay. So we submitted to Egypt and Assyria to get enough bread, as opposed to, again, relying on the Lord. Our ancestors sinned and are no more, and we bear their punishment. Slaves rule over us, and there is no one to free us from their hands. We get our bread at the risk of our lives because of the sword in the desert. Our skin is as hot as an oven, feverish from hunger. Women have been violated in Zion, and virgins in the towns of Judah. Princes have been hung up by their hands. Elders are shown no respect. Young men toil at their millstones. Boys stagger under loads of wood. The elders are gone from the city gate. The young men have stopped their music. Joy is gone from our hearts. Our dancing has turned to mourning. The crown has fallen from our head. Woe to us, for we have sinned. Because of this our hearts are faint. Because of these things our eyes grow dim. For Mount Zion, which lies desolate, with jackals prowling over it. You, Lord, reign forever. Your throne endures from generation to generation. Why do you always forget us? Why do you forsake us so long? Restore us to yourself, Lord, that we may return. Renew our days as of old, unless you have utterly rejected us and are angry with us beyond measure. So, the Book of Lamentations. So, as you can see, lots of parallels with the Sumerian Laments, and particularly the Sumerian City Laments. And if you haven't been with us for the previous Digital Hammurabi book clubs, I encourage you to go back and watch them. But you'll see when if you listen through them again, you'll hear the parallelism. You hear the parallel motifs. So yeah, this was good to do. Okay, what questions do you guys have for me? I see one. Beach Price. Excuse me. Sorry. The elders from the gate. Is that the old men who sit and talk scriptures and debate? So the elders at the gate, the judges at the gate, this is sort of a theme. This is something that was practiced in the ancient Near East in general, and that is that the city gate, because it's the place, people come in and out, lots of commerce, that sort of thing. Lots of judgments took place at the city gate. So Shamash, the sun god, the god of justice, is often shown giving justice, decreeing justice and judgments at the city gate. So this is a sort of place where judgments take place. And so elders of the gate, these are people. This is again another motif that you see not only in the biblical text but in the wider Near East. When Gilgamesh, for example, wants to go with Enkidu on his his great adventure, you have this disparity between what the young men are saying and what the old wiser men are saying. And of course, you see this in the biblical text with Rehoboam, who came after Solomon. And Rehoboam is told by the older, I can't think of the word. Damn it. MS is badass. The advisors is the word I'm searching for in the recesses of my brain. Sorry. He's told by the older advisors, lessen the tax burden essentially on the people, and they'll be on your side. And the young advisors, who are not as wise, say no. If what you need to do is say to them, if Solomon taxed you heavily, my pinky will be as his loins, as his waist. In other words, if you thought he was bad, I'm gonna tax you like crazy. And of course, the kingdom splits. So anyway, right. Well, guys, we've been going, I guess, right at an hour, and we've gotten through it. And again, I just want to apologize to everybody. And I'm trying. I'm watching YouTube videos, trying to figure out how to, operate Streamlabs. It's different. If you guys have used it, it's different than, I guess, just using it OBS straight. like I did 2 streams today accidentally, publicly accidentally. So yeah, I don't know what I was saying. Sorry, I looked at the side chat, which I probably shouldn't have done. At any rate, well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and end this. This has been fun, and again, I'm really sorry. I'm gonna keep working. I'm gonna talk to Megan when she wakes up and try to figure some of this out. But if you guys would really like me to do a stream tomorrow, since I said I would do one at 3 o'clock tomorrow, I can definitely do one. Maybe we do a Q&A, or I can read something else. We can do some more book club, or we can talk about a specific topic. If you guys have something that you want me to deal with, we can definitely do that. Enkidu 5, did Megan load the drivers? She told me to do it, and so I did, I think. But I it's hard for me to know. But yes, there are little things that it works in some places, it doesn't work in others, and I'm just afraid that I don't have the expertise to do this. But at any rate, I hopefully this mic is not awful. This one, the whatchamacallit, and yeah. What time is it here? It is midnight. About quarter to 12. But guys, I really appreciate you bearing with me, and I will be putting out the second. I'm working on the finishing up the second What Do You Mean Slavery video, which will get into Leviticus 25, 44 to 46 for those of you that have been waiting for that, if you have. And I promise I'm not saying the same old things. Enkidu 5, I am absolutely positive that it is not the mic or the Behringer. I am quite sure that I have done it incorrectly. If all the money that I could beg, borrow, and steal, if I could bet that, I would. So anyway, DLJ says that he's 12 hours behind me. Do you want to know your future? I'll end with this, but somebody showed me a video where people were really upset here in the U.S. when they found out that September 11, 2001 happened in the UK. Like, it was September 11th in the UK before it was September 11th here. And they were really upset that the UK didn't warn us that September 11th was going to happen. I shouldn't laugh at September 11th, but I mean, that just the idea that, at any rate. So the What Do You Mean video should be coming out soon. It'll be up on our Patreon page for those of you that are patrons. And then it will come out shortly after that. And I've got the script finished for What Do You Mean video 3, where we deal with the prisoner of war, the bad guys question. And, we kind of look into that. For those of you that don't know, I've started writing my slavery book, my popular level book on slavery, both in the biblical text and in the wider ancient Near East. So hopefully anytime that I do this sort of research, the level of research that I've done for the slavery topic, I'm just going to go and write a book. So hopefully that'll work out well. But I finished the intro and the first chapter, and I'm working on the second chapter now. So anyway, right. Big things to come. So if you have things that you want me to deal with tomorrow, please let me know. If there's not a big push for me to do one tomorrow, I may just take that time and work, but we'll see. Just let me know what you guys want. But until, I suppose, tomorrow, I really appreciate you guys being here. Sorry I've blathered on, but thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your patience, and I promise that we will get this thing straightened out shortly. So until next time, resist poor scholarship. Always ask, how do you know that? Good night, guys.